Hello everyone, welcome to the tutorial about JDBC. The tutorial is titled Simply JDBC. My name is Kodesar and these are my contact details which are presented to you on the slides. So let's get into the JDBC presentation. Now the reason to come up with such a tutorial about JDBC is that in this particular presentation I am also going to show you a code base about how to program in Java, how to basically do all the different operations on database as well as the tables that are part of the database. So all those things code will be shared with you as a part of this presentation. So please try to get into the details about this presentation, not just from the theoretical aspect but also from the code base, and code base will tell you exactly how to go about doing programming in Java when it comes to accessing the tables. Okay, so let's get started. So let's try to understand about the tables, the way in which data is organized. So on the screen we can now see there is a table. So in this table, there are different records are there. So this table stands for employee table. So there are now multiple records. So each particular record has a ID as well as the name, then age and salary. So essentially a table is collection of records. So like this you are going to have multiple records. Then ID is called as primary key. So using this primary key we can do multiple operations or we can do various operations on the tables. And in general these are called as the field. So like for example name, age, salary, they are the different fields of the table. So this is overall just a quick recap about what a table means. Now let's get into the details about JDBC. So let's understand what is JDBC. So JDBC stands for Java Database Connectivity, and essentially it's an API. So API stands for Application Programming Interface, and it is used, so JDBC is an API. So this particular API is used to connect to Java application with database. So you can a Java application, whenever you are writing a Java application, then using this API you can application developer can connect to database. Then another important point is now you can connect to multiple database vendors. Say for example you can connect to Oracle, you can connect to say DB2, or you can connect to say MySQL. So you are going to have multiple database vendor, but you should not be bothered as an application programmer. You need not be bothered about how the particular database needs access will be done. So this particular situation is handled by this API. That's why it is called as Application Programming Interface. That means the interface remains constant irrespective of which database you are trying to access. Then internally also JVM uses JDBC driver so that it can translate whatever the calls you are making to a specific database, and that is the responsibility of a JDBC driver, so that an application programmer, say a Java programmer, need not bother about all the technical details. So which are the examples of database? As I was mentioning, you can have Oracle, MS Access, MySQL, SQL Server, like that. So they are typical examples of RDBMS or relational databases. Then why do you want to use JDBC? So let's get into bit of an history. So before JDBC, most of the databases were trying to implement something called as open database connectivity, and people were using the ODBC APIs so that they can access database and they can execute multiple queries or different queries on the database. But what the issue with the ODBC was that it was written in C language. It used to give a flavor, or it used to give a situation where it is dependent on platform, and if the and then it used to put inherent limitation with respect to platform as well as bit of unsecured access. So considering all these drawbacks or limitations, Java on its own has defined which is called as JDBC API, and it uses JDBC drivers, and these drivers typically are written in Java language most of the times. So essentially JDBC is an API, and then it relies on JDBC drivers so that it can access database. So let's try to now see this architecture. So this is that architecture. So at the top level you are going to have Java application, then next one will be the Java API. So Java application makes use of Java API, that is JDBC. Then this Java API relies on driver manager, and driver manager then in turn makes use of each driver, which is going to be different for each databases. And then and this driver manager is also going to manage multiple drivers, because if your application is very complex, it need not make use of only one database, it can use multiple databases. So in that, JDBC driver manager plays a very important role when it comes to handling multiple drivers. So let's try to put it down. So JDBC API, so it provides JDBC manager connection. So JDBC API, this provides provides JDBC manager connection. And then JDBC API, so it supports the JDBC driver manager to driver connection. So JDBC driver API, it supports the JDBC manager to driver connection. So essentially it uses driver manager and database specific drivers to provide transparent connectivity. Here the word transparent is very important, because at the application level I need not be too much bothered about whether it is which particular database is getting access, whether it is Oracle or whether it is MySQL and stuff like that. Also JDBC manager is responsible for managing the correct driver usage, so that the database access succeeds. So this is in general about the JDBC architecture. Now let's see the different driver types. So why there are different driver types? So because the reason being is that JDBC driver implementations may vary based on different operating system as well as the hardware where the Java is operating. So because of this situation, Sun has come up. Obviously when Sun was an individual company, now it's part of Oracle, but Sun has divided this implementation into different categories like type 1, type 2, type 3 and type 4. And we are going to look at the examples of actual hands-on coding example of one of the type which is widely used. So that will become clear as we proceed. So what are those different driver types? So the first one, which was the oldest one, is basically called as JDBC ODBC bridge driver. So it relies on ODBC technology. Type 2 makes use of JDBC native API, where there is some dependency on native API. So we'll see this little bit as a part of overview. Then type 3 is called as JDBC net, or it is also called as network protocol driver. So there you can we will go into little bit about overview of this driver also. And then the type 4, which is of our interest also, which is called as thin driver and pure Java driver, will go into the details as well as about the code base, about how do we make use of this type of driver. So this is in short about the introduction about what is JDBC and what are the different driver types. In the next presentation we'll go into more details. Thank you.